Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Ril Gerald Quinn. Recording this on a Tuesday as we discuss the world of sports and pop culture. Uh, as as always, you can find me on YouTube. Share, like, subscribe to the podcast. Definitely appreciate all your support. Episode 1050, round one chaos, begin with the National Basketball Association. Of course, last night, the Denver Nuggets staved off elimination and going to Cancun um, with a 125-113 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver, for the first time in this series, for them looked like themselves. They had come into the game struggling offensively. They came into the game with a 106.3 offensive rating. That would rank 12 out of 16 teams. And they had been held under 100 points in back to back games. That only happened twice during the regular season. So Denver, which statistically was the best offensive team in terms of points per game and also offensive rating, really had been shut down by Minnesota in this series and dropping three straight games. Uh, you see Joker get back to being Joker. He dominates the game with his passing, and really they get 38 points from Cam Johnson, 30 and Spencer Jones. And this game was really over. Minnesota fought for a half, but this game really got away, and particularly the third quarter. And the fourth quarter was just, the fourth quarter was just a bunch of garbage time. So Denver, for the time being, holds off what I think would be the inevitable as far as a major playoff disappointment. Listen, I don't understand. I'm looking at the series. I really don't understand how, when you look at the injuries that Minnesota has had, how Denver to be down to get down 3-1 in this series. It's mind boggling to me that Denver was down 3-1 in this series and it's going to have to going to have to win a game seven uh, to pull this out. Then Minnesota, Anthony Edwards, who missed last night's game, of course, with a hyperextended knee, and will be out for the rest of this series and probably more than likely the rest of the playoffs, unless Minnesota made some miraculous miracle run to the conference finals. I don't see him. There's no way I see him coming back anytime soon with that injury, that bone bruise on his knee. You were playing. I mean, you had a hobbled, even when he was playing, and you had a hobbled Anthony Edwards, who was only averaging like 18 points, shooting 35%. Um, DiVincenzo, of course, towards Achilles, so he was out last night. But there's no way. Denver is to me, a much more talented team than Minnesota. If you're taking Anthony Edwards, if you don't get the All Star version, All NBA version of Anthony Edwards, again, the idea, give Chris Finch a lot of credit up to this point. He's been coaching his ass off. You saw what DeSumo has done in this series. You saw the 43-point just masterpiece of a basketball game that you saw on Saturday night to help Minnesota put them up 3-1 after the injuries to both DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards in losing that game, in leaving that game. Um, but I'm just more as impressed I have been with Minnesota and their fight and their grit. Denver has been, I think, the disappointment of these playoffs so far. I mean, this was a team that has championship aspirations. This is a team that is eventually going to have to answer a lot of question marks. I think, and I thought this uh, even before last night, after Saturday, I thought that they could come back in this series because I was like, there's no way. Like Minnesota, like Minnesota just doesn't have enough weapons. And as much again, if you look at the history of 3-1 comebacks, it's much easier to come back with home court, which Denver has. So Denver The hard game for Denver will be game five on, excuse me, game six on Thursday at Minnesota. They win that game, they're home free. They're not losing game seven to Minnesota without Anthony Edwards or DiVincenzo, let alone, I mean, without Edwards especially. So the hard, the game, the deciding game, in essence, that game seven tomorrow night, excuse me, Thursday night will be like game seven for Minnesota. Minnesota will have to win that game to win the series. But to me, this has been more about just how disappointing Denver has been. They um, have allowed Minnesota to get in their heads. And we've seen Jay McDaniels just punk just punk Minnesota, excuse me, punk Denver. Gobert's having the defensive series of his life against Joker, who even despite excellent shooting night last night, is still only shooting 42% for the series and coming into and really having the worst series of his playoff career. To be honest with you, he's been that dominant in the postseason. Like you have to go back to 2020, probably against the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals to find the last bad playoff series that Joker had. And he wasn't horrible in that. He wasn't even bad in that playoff series, but that 2020 finals, the conference finals, that was probably the worst playoff series that he's had. Even in defeats, losing to Golden State, losing to Phoenix, losing to Minnesota in 2024, Joker still produced at a relatively high level. So I just been like I've seen just watched Denver just completely just unravel and put themselves in a position where they're gonna have to win three straight games against this depleted Minnesota Timberwolves team. And this is not a team that is going to beat San Antonio. Like or Oklahoma City. Like this is not a championship team. This is not a championship caliber team. It's not a team that you look at right now and say we're one of the four teams or possible three teams that can win an NBA championship. They're just not there. You see Oklahoma City get rid of Phoenix, so they'll have plenty of time, depending on what happens tomorrow night with the Lakers and Houston. That series, I would guess that series will probably the next round. You're gonna have one game, one conference semifinal game one probably on Sunday. So I would figure that if the Lakers take care of business tomorrow night, um, that series probably starts. Would say Lakers OKC probably Saturday. I would say Saturday night, but again, depends on how many games we possibly could get a couple of game sevens here. So tonight, you have the one series right now. You have a couple series. There are three intriguing series right now. Uh, forget about forget about San Antonio uh, Trailblazers. That's a formality. Forget about the Lakers Houston formality. Um, three series of note that have some juice. Forget about Boston Philadelphia formality. Tomorrow you have Cleveland. Tomorrow you have Cleveland Toronto, but tonight you have the Knicks. At the Knicks and Hawks. And before we get to the Knicks and Hawks, Detroit, I thought Detroit was vulnerable coming into the playoffs. I did not think that they were this vulnerable uh, to 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 be on the brink of elimination against the Orlando team. You think about this Orlando team. Orlando was one of the bigger was one of the more disappointing teams and one of the more underachieving teams that we saw over the course of the NBA season. Now they had a few injuries, we understand that, but for the most part, even when they were healthy, they did not play well together. The coach was is like we had their coach basically fired during this earlier in this postseason, right before the play-in. They have an embarrassing loss in the play-in. Come back and win back-to-back games in the play-in to get themselves in the playoffs, and now they're on the cusp of putting Detroit out the playoffs as a number one seed that won 60 games, and will have we'll have a top five MVP candidate in Cade Cunningham. And I'm telling you right now, this is probably the best thing to happen if when Detroit does get eliminated. Because I don't think Detroit's coming back from 3-1. I have confidence in Denver coming back. They have a pedigree. Minnesota's hurt. Detroit, there's nothing I see in Detroit that would convince me they can come back from 3 games to one down. With the way Orlando's playing, with the amount of confidence that Orlando's playing right now, is poorly as Detroit is playing defensively. Offensively, Detroit's offensive rating in these playoffs is at 99.5. That is dead last in the postseason out of 16 teams, dead last. Matter of fact, they are the only team under 100 rating offensive, under 100 as far as offensive rating goes. They have been brutal to say the least offensively. They have one guy that's been reliant as far as putting points on the board. That's Cade Cunningham. Tobias Harris has played relatively well also, but if Tobias Harris is your second best player, you are in you are in serious has you are in serious trouble, to say the least. If he's your second best player, all due respect to Tobias Harris, at this point he should be a glorified role player on a team that's trying to contend. Jaren Duran has been getting outplayed by Wendell Carter Jr. Detroit had a game last night where they scored 36 points in the second half. 36 in a playoff game as a number one seed. And mind you, Orlando was not a great defensive team this year. Orlando was about middle of the pack defensively last this past season. This wasn't their event. We've seen Orlando be a top 10 defensive team in past years, and where they just were just horrible offensively, especially shooting the basketball. Now Orlando, has gotten healthy, minus the Wagner injury. We'll see if he plays. We'll see if he plays on tomorrow night, or we'll see if he plays in game five. But that game is on. Yeah, that game is tomorrow night. But for the most part, um, when Orlando got healthy in these playoffs, they have really come together. It seems like this us against the world mentality has galvanized them. Um, they played free. We everybody left up for dead. And frankly, let's be honest, they ran into the perfect opponent. Detroit again just flat out cannot score. And I'm telling you right now, when Detroit goes out, probably the best thing to happen to them, because they're gonna have to go out and make some moves. They don't have a roster that you look at that roster and you say, hey, if this guy develops or if that guy develops, then we'll be fine and we'll stand pat. There are some guys. Listen, if you're Detroit, I'm telling you right now, there were I you can move you can move Tobias Harris. They have some pieces you can move. You can move Beef Stew. You can move some guys. They have some guys that you can move. Allsir Thompson is a movable guy. Like you can't have. He's not good. He's nowhere near his brother offensively. Defensively, he's maybe the equal to his brother, but offensively, he's nowhere near his brother. They're gonna have some interesting decisions to make, because I don't see a team that they can, like, similar to Oklahoma City, that they can, they have this horde of talent to where they grow, develop. This time next year they'll be competing for a championship. They need to make moves, and what you saw, what you're seeing in this postseason is, again, how much the regular season does and doesn't matter. To be perfectly honest with you, and how different playoff basketball can be this postseason, the regular season, compared to the postseason. A team like Detroit in the regular season can get by. They had a top five defense. You had an MVP candidate. You had a guy in Durant having a career year, but not having that extra that other shot creator, and we knew that was going to be an issue coming into this postseason. But it has certainly exploited itself in this particular series. They have nothing, no one that can get their own shot and create offense for anybody else, outside of Cade Cunningham. And I'm telling you right now, it won't be before long, before Cade Cunningham looks around and say, "This is what I'm working with." So this will be a very this will be an important off season for a number of teams, especially losing teams that get knocked out in the playoffs. Um, we could certainly Houston and Denver could be on Houston will be on that list, and Denver could be joining them within at least in the next after the next round if they get past Minnesota. But Detroit right now, I honestly believe that this is probably the best thing that can happen to Detroit from a standpoint of showing how far they are away because they're not close to Boston. They were not even remotely close to the Boston Celtics, right? You go to the Western Conference, they are not even they are a stratosphere away from a Oklahoma City or San Antonio Spurs. Those are three teams you're competing with. You're trying to win a championship. Those are the three. You if if you're trying to win serious about winning a championship, you're looking at OKC, San Antonio, and Boston in that order. Knicks Hawks will be the game to watch tonight, 8 o'clock. This series has been, though seemingly dominated by the Knicks in terms of how much they've led, the Hawks find themselves um, right there in the best of three. Hawks probably blew their chance to win the series as the Knicks embarrassed them on Saturday night. And what you saw in that game, and hopefully, if you're a Knicks fan, Mike Brown is taking note of. You look at when the Knicks have been at their best, right? Karl Anthony Towns has been their best player, and it's been with Jalen Brunson off the ball. It's been with the offense running through Towns. It's been when Anunoby is creating offense. Um, I think it's clear as day. Like I look at the Knicks and they are so easy to guard when Jalen Brunson is initiating offense the majority of the time. Now, you look at these numbers in this series. Karl Anthony Towns in this series has a offensive rating. His offensive rating is 134 in this series. 134, defensive rating 101. Anunoby, offensive rating 146, defensive rating 105. Jalen Brunson, offensive rating 104, defensive rating 112. That's the advanced numbers. Look at the regular stats. Karl Anthony Towns, 21, 11, and 5 on 57% from the field, 50% from the 3-point line. Anunoby, 20, basically 21 and 9, 56% from the field, 52% from three. Jalen Brunson has taken 42 more shots than Towns, okay? And he's taken 39 more shots than Anunoby. Brunson in this series only shooting 41, but leads the team in scoring at 25, but is taking a bunch of shots, only shooting 41% from the field. So not only for this series, but I think for the long term, as long as like ultimately, if you're the Knicks are going to win this series. Like I said, I think Atlanta blew their chance to win this series by losing game four. Game four. Now you go back to New York. They 2 of the 3 next games. You have to win in New York to win. You have to win in New York again to win this series. I think the Knicks will win tonight. Could it go seven? Possibly. Possibly. We've seen the Knicks, play with their food at times. But I think more than likely the series will end in 6 games. But I think it's clear to me um, what they should be doing offensively in this particular series. Like the Knicks have a advantage up front with Karl Anthony Towns. Like you know when you look at this was a town. This should have been a Towns series as far as the matchup goes. Atlanta has wings that they could throw at Brunson. They have sides that they could throw at Brunson. Uh, Atlanta has nothing. They have absolutely nothing that they can do with Karl Anthony Towns. And Towns in this series is only averaging this. This is incredible. He's only averaging in about 10 shots a game. Yeah, in this series, well, it has to be more than that. Why it doesn't find that? Well, they've played four. Listen, played 4 games. He's had 40 shots. It's about 10 shots a game. I can do that math. Yeah, it's about 10 shots a game. He's been getting to the line, and he's only averaging about 10 shots a game. And like, look, look, I love. I'm a Brunson fan. I understand Brunson completely changed the culture. Became All NBA caliber player. Has finished. Um, had a season where we've seen him. One a couple years ago was first team All NBA, second team All NBA, has been All NBA the last. He'll be All NBA again this year, so he's going to have 3 straight years of All NBA. Again, Brunson has been tremendous as a Nick. He's been a great Nick. I think the best Nick, the most impactful Nick since Patrick Ewing. He's been a better Nick than Carmelo Anthony. I hate to say it, but he has been. There's all there is to it. Got the team to a conference final. Carmelo Anthony never did that. And again, has had a much bigger impact on winning. But if you're Mike Brown, you just gotta use your noodle here and get the ball to Karl Anthony Towns. Like and run your offense through Towns at times. You can run your offense through Anunoby at times. I'm not saying I'm taking Brunson completely off the ball for extended periods of time and taking the ball out of his hands completely. I want Brunson to be able to produce, to be able to go to. There are many times where Brunson has to go 1-on-1. I want the goal to me. I would think that the goal would be to keep Brunson fresh for the fourth quarter, where he has been over the last couple of years one of the best clutch players in the league. Last year, I believe last year he was the clutch player of the year. Last year, he was it last year, 2 years ago. I want to say it was last year. So that's his strength. So it all works out perfectly if you get the, especially in this series, but even moving forward, 'cause I think they're going to win this series. And let's be honest, and we can kind of look ahead because Boston is in total control. In order to beat Boston, you're not going to beat Boston with Jalen Brunson dominating basketball, with putting, they still have wings that they can throw at Jalen Brunson. You can still throw Jalen Brown. You can still throw Derek White. They still have people that they can throw. Wash. They have people that they have wings, not as many, but they have enough wings that Boston will be able to throw at Jalen Brunson to a point. And again, that matchup next round, Karl Anthony Towns will have a significant advantage inside. That's Boston's weakness on the inside. He's going to have another advantage. Vucevic or whoever you want to run at him, he's going to have the advantage. So uh, I know Knicks fans don't want to hear this, but the Knicks will go as far as Karl Anthony Towns takes them, or I should say, as they will go as far as how effective Karl Anthony Towns is utilized by Mike Brown. Because they're not, I can't blame Towns if he's not getting the basketball. I can't. I'm sorry. That's to me, that's coaching, and there's really no excuse for Karl Anthony Towns to only be taking like 10 shots a game against this team. It's just it's ridiculous. There's zero excuse for that. So again, Towns is taking 47, like I said, 47 shots through 4 games. So tonight, that would be the game to see. Again, I have no expectations of, I have no expectations of the other two series as far as intrigue, in regards to Boston, Philadelphia. Philadelphia has got waxed on Sunday. Um, they have no chance. I don't even with Embiid. I just don't see it. Them wanting to go back. I like this. I just don't see Philadelphia having much fight left in them tonight. And of course, Portland, considering what transpired over the weekend in Portland. Again, I don't think Portland will lay down, but Portland had multiple opportunities on last Friday and Sunday. They blew a 15-point lead on Friday. No Wembanyama. You see Harper and Castle have big games, and then they come back on Sunday, blow a 19-point lead. Wembanyama dominates, and you see Wembanyama and also De'Aaron Fox have big games, and uh, San Antonio flexes muscle in that particular game. And then I listen, Portland, has acquitted themselves fine. They were overmatched to begin with. We understand that. But I don't see this series going back to Portland. So the it game tonight is New York. Will be New York and Atlanta. Um, again, the NBA stretches out these first round series. They want to get 3 weekends of first round action. Um, and then tomorrow you'll have, of course, Orlando. You will have Orlando trying to stave off, excuse me, Detroit trying to stave off elimination with Detroit and Orlando. Same Houston and the Lakers. This is a couple minutes on Houston and Lakers. Austin Reeves could return. He's been questionable the last 2 games with the oblique. Kevin Durant more than likely will not play with the ankle injury. Listen, regardless of Kevin Durant, he's taking some heat. I don't blame Kevin Durant from an injury standpoint. I've never known Kevin Durant to not play when he was not injured. That's one thing you can say a lot of things about Kevin Durant. I've never known him to sit out games just for the sake of sitting for to even remotely his character as far as injury be questioned. Never known that. He can if he can play, he can play. He's played through injury. Played. I mean, we saw him tear his Achilles on when he had that calf injury back in 19 when in the 19 NBA finals when he probably should have been playing out there. Probably should have been out there, but it was for the finals and he tore his Achilles and lost the entire season next season because of it. But when not if, but when Houston is eliminated, there are going to be a number of questions that they have moving forward with that particular franchise. And Kevin Durant, there will be no escaping criticism whatsoever if you're Kevin Durant. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So it's just a matter of time. But this is the worst possible scenario for a Kevin Durant. When you think of the fact that you're losing to a undermanned Laker team, you get injured, and LeBron James again outduels you, even at his advanced age of 41, is has been by far the best player in the series. So everything that could possibly went wrong for Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets has gone wrong for them. And again, when Houston goes out, um, that will be it's not going to be on the level of if Denver goes out in that disappointment. Detroit is going to take a lot of heat if they go out. That's boy that will be one of the bigger. This team will be one of the bigger underachieving disappointments to go out in the first round. Like if you don't lose to, it's one thing to lose to San Antonio or OKC or even possibly Denver, but losing to the Lakers, possibly in 5 games, that was definitely not on the bingo card if you're for the Houston Rockets. And Durant is going to be at the heart of any criticism that will come to that organization and that franchise, which will absolutely have a number of questions to answer uh, this summer. The deep dive, of course, Michael came out last week. Did a pretty good job at avoiding. Uh, it was out, but on Friday, number of people had screeners that saw it early. So I did my best to avoid any spoilers and what have you. There will be spoilers on here. I'll try to avoid any major ones, but there could be some spoilers here. Um, Here's what I'll say. I had zero problem with the movie as a whole. I came in with the expectation. I knew there wasn't going to be any Janet Jackson. I knew they weren't going to deal with the controversy with from 1993. First of all, I did that was one spoiler that I did hear that it only went up to 1988, and it didn't ruin the movie for me at all. So I knew they wasn't going to deal with that. Even they even in part two, which they're going to make, they won't deal with that. It's fine with the cast. Some of the stuff didn't know about the Don King stuff. That was some good stuff that I didn't know from that the movie provided. Listen, i- the lens that you view these biopics has to be from, especially when the estate is calling shots. You're not going to get it's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be very messy. We knew Joe Jackson was whipping his ass. Okay, we knew. I knew that growing up, and especially with and it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible if you're old enough to follow this, to have this movie follow Jackson's American Dream, the the television series that came out. I think it was in '92. That's almost impossible to follow because that was like that was it wasn't a documentary, but that gave you way. I would go back. I would encourage fans to go back and watch that if you really want to get the gist of what was going on. Or you gotta read some books. You gotta read some books in regards to that. But they again, it was going to be a safe celebration, nostalgic, nostalgic play on the Michael Jackson legacy. The music was incredible. Um, I thought Coleman Domingo's performance as Joe Jackson was incredible. To be honest with you, I thought the young child who played young Michael Jackson had all the mannerisms down pat. Um, so again I had my like I, I think when you watch these biopics, you got to view them from the standpoint of they're going to people that are telling their stories are not going to allow anyone to control their narrative and tell their narrative in a way that they don't want it told. You're not going to get the good. You're not going to get the meat of of what transpired over the course of Michael Jackson's life with what in terms of his career. You gotta read some books. You gotta deep dive some articles. Um, you're not getting in in a biopic. It's just not going to happen. Um, Now, again, these stories are out there. So if you want to, you can find what transpired in 1993. It's out there. There was some journalism going on back in during that time. There are a number of interviews that you can go online and watch. I'm sure online and see what was happening. I'm sure. I mean, I they there was a there was a there was a video of Michael Jackson telling, when he was arrested and he had to like strip. And there was video of, not video of him stripping, but video of him telling the story of, how they made him take his clothes off and what have you, what have you. There's video of that. It might still actually be on YouTube. So there's stuff. I mean, there's information to be found from that standpoint. This movie, again, the power of Michael Jackson's legacy, the power of the impact he had on culture is absolutely just undeniable. He transcended, forget about music, he transcended culture, and it still remains today. This movie grossed $97 million domestically, $217 million worldwide. The Broadway show did like $319 million. They're going to do a part two. Um, it was already the second highest biopic behind Bohemian Rhapsody. Now it's a distant second because Bohemian Rhapsody ended up doing like $919 million worldwide, and it has a long way to go before that. But it's going to do some serious numbers. Now, The Devil Wears Prada comes out this week, so that will cut into it. But it's not a lot. There's not a lot of stuff coming out until the summer, so it has a chance to rack up here, and really can. They're going to do some major numbers with this. The Michael Jackson people are still years later, 40, 50 years later, are still enthralled with the mystique and the aura of one Michael Jackson. You saw people dressing up and going in a theater. They were doing they were doing performances on who was the best mic. People were doing performances before the movie started. People were doing performances after the movie was over. So some of the stuff. So again, this is the power of the power of the legacy of the impact of one Michael Jackson. There's never been anything like it. I don't think we will ever see anything like it in my lifetime or any other lifetime, for that matter. But again, the movie as a whole, I have no complaints about it. I did not go into it with super high expectations based off what I've seen out of biopics in the last decade or the last 20 years or so. And you really think about it, the last biopic to really get down and dirty was kind of like what's love got to do with it, and that was told from the lens of Tina Turner. That was told from her completely her perspective, but it was still I still give her credit because clearly she dealt with a lot of trauma with the domestic violence and the abuse that she took from Mike Turner. So I give her credit for having to basically reopen that trauma, being a part of that storytelling, being a part of that movie in terms of the storytelling and what have you. But you're not going to find biopics that tell the complete story or that get into the mass like that. It's just not where we're at in 2025 and 20 excuse me in 2026. And keep this in mind, it's hard enough to find a great documentary. Oh, it's not easy finding great documentaries right now, to be perfectly honest with you. Not the way we used to. There's still some out there, but it's becoming more challenging finding them to tell the complete stories on certain subjects or certain people. Well, before we get to real thoughts, just a couple. I have some thoughts on the first round of the NFL draft. Listen, I don't grade drafts. I will leave that to the Todd McShays, Mel Kipers. Everybody. It's unbelievable how people how people grade drafts when the players haven't stepped on the field. But that's the machine, and that's fine because I read them. But some things that jumped out, and I really just really zeroed in on the first round. The first round, like this was going to be by far the first round in this draft was going to be by far the most intriguing. This was not a deep draft to say the least. When you compare it to past drafts, especially limited at the quarterback position. So we wonder who would be the second quarterback taken. Wondered, or excuse me, we knew that Ty Simpson would be the second quarterback taken. We wondered where he would fall, and to my surprise, he was picked 13th by the Rams. Now, I was, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked by his pick for a couple of reasons. Number one, I watched Ty Simpson. I watched a lot of Alabama this year, so I probably saw Ty Simpson play at least, including the playoff games, at least 12 times this year, at least 11 to 12 times. There was a stretch in the season where I thought Ty Simpson was going to win the Heisman Trophy. He was playing at that high of a level, but even during that particular time period, nothing, and I mean from a physical standpoint, nothing jumped off the television and watching him. Just nothing. It was just like okay, he was relatively accurate, but I never thought of Ty Simpson, and it never crossed my mind that this guy could be a potential franchise NFL quarterback. And I'm constantly now again. You heard stuff. There was going to be a team that reached for him in the first round. If he doesn't go 13 with the Rams, he probably would have went to the bottom half somewhere between 25 and 32, or maybe even between 20 and 32. He was going to get drafted in the first round. But if you're the Rams, you know, Rams have hit on a number of picks, but the Rams don't have this great history of drafting and developing quarterbacks under this regime. Um, Les Snead, okay, came into started making decisions, started running, became the president and what have you in 2017. Jared Goff was drafted in 2016, so that was not Les Snead's pick. Jared Goff was a guy was the number one pick, had a very successful career with the Rams, helped get them to a Super Bowl, which of course they lost in New England, and of course Jared Goff is with the is had is with Detroit, has had some success, has played well for the Detroit Lions as they've gotten to the playoffs a couple of times with him at the helm with him at the helm. But when you look at the Rams at the quarterback position, they got Matthew Stafford from a trade. They traded Jared Goff. Matter of fact, they traded Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff in a first round pick for Matthew Stafford. That was basically a straight up trade. Like Goff, you're not good enough. Stafford is going to take us to that next level, and Stafford he ended up being the difference between them going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. But there's no like Andy Reid has a track record of developing quarterbacks and getting the most out of guys who were either retreads or wasn't thought to be that good. Green Bay as a franchise, a history of drafting quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks. The Rams don't have that at all. So they don't get the benefit of the doubt from my standpoint. They don't get the benefit of the doubt in taking a guy this high. Um, I know people want to make a lot of the Sean McVay press conference, saying he was. Some people are making a lot of it. I wouldn't. I'm just telling you, without even reading the body language of Sean McVay during that press conference. If I'm Sean McVay, we are in win now mode. I would not be happy taking a guy who is not going to play anytime. Is not going to play for at least another 2 to 3 years. When I'm trying to win the Super Bowl, like right now, when I can draft a guy like Ruben Bain who can rush the passer. I can put him alongside Jared Verse, and I can go out there and try to knock Sam Darnold's head off or Brock Purdy's head off because you can never have enough pass rushers. Or I can plug a hole in my offensive line. Like there were players at 13. You take Ty Simpson 13. Like there's no way I would have took Ty Simpson at 13. Again, if you if you are the Rams, like Matthew Stafford again, I know Matthew Stafford has some back issues, but he's coming out. He's the MVP of the league right now. I would say if Stafford can stay up straight, stay up. They can keep him relatively healthy. He could play another 2 years, at least another 2 years. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not drafting a quarterback when I have a win now team. If the Eagles drafted a quarterback at the bottom half of the round, like at 20 or something like that, that would make sense based off the type of year Jalen Hurts had and what they may think of him. It makes zero sense to me for the Rams to draft Ty Simpson. None. And this was not a draft where teams were reaching for quarterbacks. We knew Mendoza was going to go number one for like basically the past 4 months. Um, Teams were not like you saw, but again, after Ty Simpson, you had quarterbacks going in third round, fourth round, things of that nature. Teams were not reaching for quarterbacks this year. They weren't. They were not. I give teams a lot of credit. They did not. This was the only major reach, unacceptable reach for a quarterback that we had in the draft. To be honest, perfectly honest with you. You have two quarterbacks. Excuse me. You had two running backs go in the first round. zero problem with JD and Price to Seattle. Seattle is a Super Bowl now team, the defending Super Bowl champions. They lost their running back, their starting running back who was the MVP of the Super Bowl. Cool. We already have a ready-made championship team. I'm normally not big on running backs in the first round, but I have no problem with a running back going at what 32. The Arizona Cardinals taking Jeremiah Love at the number 3 pick was is borderline insane to me. As many needs as that team had, you're gonna take him at number 3. Like it just makes zero sense to take a running back in the top 5 or in the top 10 unless it's a situation like I don't unless it's a situation like I thought possibly maybe Kansas City, unless it's a situation where you have multiple picks and you're a Super Bowl caliber team and you're like a running back away from a Super Bowl caliber from being a Super Bowl caliber team, and he's too good to pass up at say number 9 or 10. Again, a lot of things would have to happen for me to take a running back. A lot of things would have to be in order for me to take a running back in the first round, let alone in the top 5 or top 10. Taking Jeremiah Love for that franchise, which is horrible, has been horrible to take him at 3 when you have so many other needs. It made I saw the pick. I was like, this is what the Cardinals are the Cardinals. This is why they are who they are. And that made zero sense to me. And again, I understand in a lot of few boards that he's the number 1 rated player. I get it. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying he won't be a star player. But again, there are a number of needs. To be perfectly honest with you, if somebody would have been willing to, and there were a lot of trades in this draft, expectedly, rightfully so, because we have so many teams with multiple first round picks. I would have traded down and got like Arizona really should have traded down and got multiple picks. They have that many needs on their football team. You see Makai Lemon go to the Eagles in the first round at 20. That does not guarantee that people that does not guarantee that Brown will be traded. I listen, Harry Roseman. Anything you know about Harry Roseman? He loves to stack talent. He loves to stack talent. So don't assume if you're an Eagle fan, don't assume that you're gonna be moving Brown out of Philly. Yeah, you're gonna be moving Brown just because you drafted this guy at number 1 as a number 1 receiver. Just because you drafted this guy with a first round pick. Roseman loves he stacks talent. Like he's gotten multiple. We've seen him go defense, multiple defensive linemen and linebackers. They have a culture of creating competition at different at different positions. So that the Ty Simpson thing just I couldn't believe it. Like I literally, and again, I respect the Rams. The Rams have been a tremendous organization. They've been in They won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years. They've been in contention. They could have won one this year. They had a Super Bowl caliber team this year. But if I'm Sean McVay, could not be happy with that pick. Like there's no way, that if you have a top 13 pick that you take Ty Simpson over some of the players that they could have taken. So we'll see. Again, I'm anticipating that Stafford will play at least another 2 years, at least. Again, keep this in mind. When Jared Goff was drafted by the Rams, he had played like 37 games. He played 37 games, started 3 years. He was a 3 year starter. Ty Simpson has started 1 full year. He's been and got into some garbage time. Got some garbage time in like 11 other games over the course of his career. But this was his first full year of starting. So there's just a lack of reps and just a lack of experience that he has coming in. Again, the Rams are a ready-made team. They are trying to win the Super Bowl yesterday. We'll end the show with some real thoughts. Of course, we had the Saturday night, your NBA action was interrupted by another shooting involving one Donald J. Trump. Um, this time at the correspondence dinner at the Washington Hilton Hotel. It's been held there for a number of years, about going back 25, 30, about 30 years. You had the alleged shooter, Cole Thomas Allen, well, not alleged, but the shooter, Cole Thomas Allen, 31 years old, Torrance, California, didn't get inside the ballroom, but was in the same hotel. Um, there were, shots fired. You saw people inside the ballroom, of course, hitting the floor. You saw JD Vance get taken out. Donald Trump was just chilling, living his best life, with just not a seemingly not a care in the world. Um, Now, the shooting took place like two levels above where the actual ballroom was at. So he didn't get inside, he didn't get close to the president enough to where he could have taken Donald Trump out. But when you hear stuff like when something like this happens, the conspiracy theorists just having, one big conspiracy theorist orgy. And this is a conspiracy theorist wet dream when shit like this happens, especially with this administration where we know Donald Trump is a pathological liar. He's told tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lies over the course of his years as president of the United States, this being his second term. And, people have questions. And some of the questions are very fair questions. I don't, I'm not big on a conspiracy theory. I will say this. I have to admit this on Saturday night when it first happened. Maybe because I was so just despondent that they would cut the game, that the game was being. I had to turn the channel or move to another channel because of the game. I did say this, man. Could this be staged? The way Donald Trump was chilling, and just the reason why I say that, and I'm not anybody knows I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the reason why I said that was I'm like, so there's a shooting at the hotel, and Donald Trump is still going to be like they keep it down. Donald Trump is not going to be removed, completely removed from there. At this point, he hadn't been removed from there. Eventually, later on, the dinner would get canceled and shut down, and then he would be removed. But it took a while for him. Initially, he wasn't removed, so I was like, this is some bullshit. But eventually, but when you hear reporters. There were a couple of reporters who came on, said that the hotel, those places, that hotel, and some of those places where they hold these dinners, where presidents and even vice presidents have been, are not as secure as one may think. Heard Roland Martin speak on that. Heard Simone Sanders basically said she rode her scooter up basically to the front of the hotel with minimum security. People that were there said they heard gunshots. You heard reporters and journalists, if you want to call all of them journalists, and said that, yeah, no, the gunshots are real. So it wasn't a hoax. So I'll say that it was not a hoax, in my opinion, based off the stuff that I've read, based off these testimonies from people that were actually there, even some journalists that I actually trust and respect in terms of following them throughout their course of their careers, including Roland Martin and Simone Sanders. But that doesn't mean that we should not have questions about this. And that's like you can have questions without going full, without going conspiracy theory, going to conspiracy theory mode. Like, yeah, a lack of security should be a question. Why is this dude still alive? Should be a question. Um, keep this in mind. This hotel is not like a controlled area. Like you cannot control like, with a school, you can check IDs and know and be have everyone accounted for, every student accounted for, every adult accounted for that's in the building with the proper security. Can't do that for a hotel. There's no way you can check every single person that was in that hotel. And the Washington Hilton wouldn't be going for that because that would hurt their business. They're not going to have people, they're not going to have every single person that was in that hotel accounted for, especially when considering the size of that hotel. Remember, there's 2,000 people, over a couple thousand people that were in that ballroom. And the ballroom was two levels. Um, you got to get to from the entrance of the hotel. What I was told is the ballroom is two levels below. So that hotel was not a controlled area in terms of from a security standpoint. And you have to understand the administration that we're dealing with when we talk about incompetence as far as security goes. This is the third time that Donald Trump's life, like, this is the third time that there has been some gun. Donald Trump has been connected with being either shot at or gunshots around. You got Butler, Pennsylvania in 2024, where he was literally shot in the ear. You had a gunman who was apprehended on his golf course in Mar-a-Lago that same summer. And of course, you had now this guy who said that he was trying to take out not only Trump, but people connected to Trump and had written the whole manifesto and what have you. Um, this guy came from Torrance, California, took a train from Torrance, California to Chicago, and then from Chicago to DC. And I think what we underestimate as we are, kind of drawn to the MAGA code, and we discuss how put people on the right put Donald Trump on his pedestal, even to a point to where he's you know basically doing AI pictures of himself as Jesus Christ because they treat him like he's God. We underestimate that there's another half of the country that absolutely wholeheartedly detest Donald Trump and would love to take him out, would love for him to be gone, would absolutely love it. So I don't think that group gets talked about enough. So it's not unusual for somebody to have the idea that they would want to kill Donald Trump. Like that's not out of the realms of possibility. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, especially a guy who he does nothing but incite violence. He's been doing it since he became president. You could talk January 6th. We could talk, stand down before that. There's been so many situations that Donald Trump has incited violence. So, violence begets violence. I mean, the energy you put out, the energy you're gonna get back. It's a truism in life. And it's interesting some of the comments he had during his press conference. Like he he was accepting he was accepting that he was accepting that people were expecting that people were going to take shots at him. You hear how he was talking, basically saying, it's a very dangerous job, um, giving all these numbers on the percentages of how many presidents have been shot at or killed. Says, hey, shoot, like they shot him, they killed him, shot him. So he like he takes getting shot at or somebody plotting to take him out as a badge of honor. So in essence, you know, he really don't give a fuck about his own life, which should be scary because if he doesn't give a fuck about himself, he damn sure don't give a fuck about you as a country in terms of national security. So again, there's a level of incompetence when you look at the FBI director, when you look at the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. We shouldn't be surprised that this type of shit is happening. To be perfectly honest with you, you have people in positions that have no clue what they're doing. You have a guy who I don't want to say Donald Trump has a death wish, but seems to be more concerned about building a ballroom than about his own safety and security. So this is where we at. This is where we're at. But again, I I would encourage anybody and don't go into the conspiracy theorist rabbit hole. I think it's a lazy thought process. I think look, we got to get back to some point critical thinking. You gotta get back to like again the conspiracy. Anybody listen, anybody can make up shit. That is it's not hard. It does not take a lot of brains. Doesn't take a lot of thought to just say something with no evidence whatsoever and start connecting dots that are not there. But ask questions. You should absolutely 100% ask questions. How did this happen? Why did this happen? Who benefits from it? And so happy. There's nothing wrong with that. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your week. So long.